Hello everybody, this is a talk about personal knowledge graphs and why I think that they are the next fundamental step of digitization and can fundamentally change our lives. I originally presented this vision on the Solid Symposium 2023 in Nuremberg. My name is Angelo Feltens. I'm a software developer and IT consultant working for Concentric Hamburg. I care for building great software that helps actual people. To bring back control to our digital lives, I'm actively working on Tim Berners-Lee's Solid project, which will play a major role in this talk. A few years ago, I bought a house. The attic was a bit dark, so we wanted to add another window to the roof.
Of course, in the age of digitization, you go online to buy a window, don't you? So did I. At first, but it turned out to be more complicated than I expected. You get a lot of options to choose from, starting from the size and material of the window to the type of the roof. But instead of helping me, it actually made me a bit nervous. What kind of window will actually fit into my roof? Did I consider everything? The problem was that the online shop does not know anything about my specific roof and cannot help me in deciding what is right for my house. So eventually I stopped by a DIY store to talk to a person. The employee there made me aware of something called Dachsparrenabstand. Do you know what this is? I didn't either. Dachsparrenabstand is one of those funny German words that are actually 3 words, and it means the distance between the wooden rafters of the roof. This is very important to know, because if the window is too big, it will not fit between the rafters. So I needed to go back home to find out my Dachsparrenabstand. I could not measure it because the rafters are hidden under the surface. But I got some paper documents from the former owner. The value should be in there, shouldn't it? It wasn't. Fortunately, the rafters were at least drawn into the blueprint, and so I could measure on the paper and calculate the distance using the scale. You may be wondering why I'm telling you all this. Well, this is a story about knowledge. In our daily lives, we need to know many things to perform our tasks. These facts come from different sources. There are some things we just know ourselves, like I know that I can bring more light into my house by adding a window. But I did not know about the importance of the Dachsparrenabstand. So there are things others know that are important to my task. Further, there are other things written down on paper or in digital documents, like the blueprint. Other facts are not documented somewhere directly, but can be calculated or retrieved by measuring. And of course, more and more information is stored in the apps and services we are using. You can see the knowledge we need to perform our tasks is scattered around many different places. Do you remember Apple's marketing slogan when the first iPhone came out? They said, "There's an app for that. Whatever you want or need to do, there's an app that can do it." They were right. They still are. We have apps for anything. But, and here comes the big but, most tasks cannot be done in a single app alone. As long as data is scattered around multiple apps or even analog documents, we do not get an integrated view on the things we need to know to perform a certain task. You might object that this is true for complicated tasks, like adding a new window. But what about simple things like cooking a recipe? This is fully supported by digital apps, isn't it? Well, let's see. Let's cook something. What do we need? First of all, we need to decide for a recipe and look up what ingredients are needed to cook it. Then I have to check my stocks. Do I have everything I need? And is it enough for the amount I want to cook? Are there perhaps some things missing that I need to get from the supermarket? How long are they opened? Is there anything in the recipe I need to replace due to allergies or other dietary restrictions? As you can see, even a simple task like cooking involves multiple sources of information. The complexity of all this can be visualized as a graph. Let's go through a concrete example. Alice wants to eat with her friend Bob. She invited him to dinner and wants to prepare something for the two of them. This graph visualizes some of the knowledge involved in that task. There's Alice, who has picked a recipe, and the ingredients needed for that recipe. Alice has also some stocks, which may or may not contain those ingredients. Some of the ingredients may be available at a nearby supermarket that has specific opening hours that may become important to Alice if she needs to go shopping after checking her stocks. Then there's of course Bob, who might have allergies that are caused by some of the ingredients of the recipe. Alice has to consider this. Of course, looking up a recipe online is quite easy. Alice can easily find a recipe and a list of ingredients she needs. But she still needs to check her stocks and put the missing things to her shopping list manually. You might notice that in this screenshot there's a button on the bottom of the list. It says Add to Shopping List. This sounds helpful. But clicking the button brings you to one specific shopping list service. You cannot choose your own shopping list application. You're forced to either use this service or transfer the items manually to the tool you're using. Even if you happen to use that shopping list, you might find another recipe on another site next time, and that site does not integrate with this service. It is a one-to-one integration of this specific recipe site and that specific shopping list service. And this is still the current state of digitization in basically every domain. One-to-one integrations between specific apps for specific use cases. Now that Alice has found a recipe, she needs to check with Bob. The recipe site does not know anything about him. So she opens a messaging app they are both using to contact him and ask him whether he is fine with lasagna. Bob agrees, but reminds Alice to remember her celiac disease. Alice already knows that this means she must not use gluten. But which of the recipe's ingredients contain gluten? She's not sure about the soy sauce, so she searches the web for information and finds that soy sauce actually may contain gluten, but also that there exist gluten-free products. Once again, she has to switch to her shopping list app to update it to remind her to buy a gluten-free soy sauce. With the recipe site, the shopping list app, the chat and the web search, there are already 4 apps and services involved in the simple task of cooking a meal for 2 people. And we are not even done yet. Alice needs to buy some of the missing ingredients and visits the sites of her favorite retailers. The shops do not know anything about Alice's task, therefore Alice has to enter the relevant information on each and every page manually. She searches for gluten-free soy sauce, enters her location so she gets results from the correct store, and also checks her calendar to see when she could best fit in the shopping. The first store does not have gluten-free soy sauce. The second one closes too early. Finally, she finds one that has the sauce, and to that she can get in time. But it was a tedious work. All the information Alice needs is stored somewhere, but she needs to enter and correlate it manually. The knowledge Alice is needing to perform her task forms a graph, a knowledge graph. The problem is, apps are unaware of it. Alice still needs to do the hard work and put all the pieces together. Although she has an app for everything, those apps do not support her task in its entirety. Don't get me wrong, there is no killer app, and it's also not desirable to have one app to manage our whole life. Who should it build? Who could we trust? A single app covering all use cases is neither possible nor desirable. We need an interoperable app ecosystem that is aware of all relevant knowledge and the context we are currently in. This is what the Solid project can be a basis for. Solid is an extension of the existing web by its own inventor Tim Berners-Lee. The core idea of Solid is to split identity, storage, and apps. The Solid Web ID can be used as a single sign-on to any app on the web, and those apps store data on your personal data store. These data stores are called Solid pods. This allows you to store the data on your place and use it with other apps in an interoperable way. You can find out more about Solid on solidproject.org. Now let's take another look at our cooking task, but this time Alice is using Solid. She is signed up for a pod and got a web ID and storage. Also, her friends are using Solid and gave her access to some of their data. To find a recipe, she's using a Solid-compatible web search. The example I'm giving here is hypothetical, but it is an app that could actually build using Solid. The app could not only search the traditional web for recipes, but also take into account the cookbooks Alice has stored in her pod. Alice can add data from her pod to the context of the search, like the fact that she is looking for a recipe for herself and Bob. This allowed the app to propose recipes based on the favorite meals of Bob. Bob can also grant access to his list of allergies, which allows the search to provide smart filters based on that information. Once she found a recipe, she can add it to her recipes collection with a single click. The search will store the recipe in her pod together with the other recipes she already has in there. So now Alice can use a solid recipe app to manage her recipes and also find the new recipe in there. She can go through the list of ingredients. She also stored her shopping list in a solid pod and can easily add the data from the list of ingredients to the shopping list, no matter what shopping list app she is using. Remember, data and apps are separated. The integration works on the data level within the pod. The recipe app can update the shopping list data with ingredients, and Alice can still use any shopping list app to read and update the same shopping list. Both apps share the access to the shopping list but support different use cases. While the recipe app can add ingredients to the list, the shopping list app is specialized on shopping. It could, for example, provide information about nearby shops and whether those shops have the items on her list available. While going through her task, Alice can use different apps that work on the same data. Those apps kind of overlap in data and purpose. They support her in what she needs to do next. There's not a single app that needs to do everything, but there are apps that collaborate seamlessly. The idea is that Alice can use all her data wherever she needs them. This is not restricted to personal apps she's using, but also extends to online services like e-commerce. In this example, Alice is visiting the website of her favorite retailer, which provides a pickup service. She can order stuff online and pick it up in a store nearby, whenever she feels ready. So, now multiple interesting things happen when she uses Solid to sign into the shop. First of all, the shop can read and integrate her shopping list. You can see it on the left side here. Usually Alice would need to copy-paste items to a search field, but now she can simply click on them to get direct results from what the shop offers. Alice could even let the shop autofill her basket based on her shopping list instead of going through all the items one by one. The point is, the data is already on her pod, and Alice does not need to manually transfer it from a shopping list app to the shop's site. The shop can integrate with the data that Alice makes available. Alice has all the data she needs where she needs them, even her calendar. When choosing a pickup time, the shop can integrate her calendar data. No need to switch to a calendar app. The pickup time will also be written back to the calendar in her pod. All the new data that gets created during the shopping process will be written to her pod and become part of Alice's personal knowledge graph, like the order confirmation, the invoice, or data about the ordered items. Imagine Alice wants to get an overview of all she ordered this year. If she ordered everything in one shop, it's easy. Just sign into that shop and visit My Orders. With multiple shops, it gets complicated. Not so with Solid. Alice will find all the orders in her pod, no matter where she placed them. Cooking is quite a simple example. Let's now take a look into a more complex task, like planning a party with a group of friends. A lot of things need to be coordinated between multiple people. Welcome to Bob's summer party. To organize the party, Bob, Alice and their friends have to talk about lots of things. Who is going to bring salad? Who buys beverages? What kind of music is desired? Again, all the things that need to be known and done form a complex knowledge graph that spans over multiple people and contexts. Today, the group would probably throw everything in a WhatsApp group chat or create a Google Doc to organize their needs. But that is far from optimal. Think about manually filling a music playlist from wishes thrown all along a group chat. With Solid, many of the relevant information will already be present in the people's pods, like music preferences and recipes. To organize themselves, the group can connect more data to it, like to-do lists, music playlists, and other things specific to the party. Each person can use their own pod and their own apps, but still collaborate on a common project using the same knowledge graph. Complex tasks, like a group organizing a party, neither could nor should be done by a single app. Instead, multiple apps should operate on the same graph. The fundamental change compared to how apps work today is that apps do no longer own the data, people do. Friction today occurs every time you need to transfer data from one app to another. But conceptually, there is only one knowledge graph, and each app needs a certain part of it. Those parts are not strictly separated, they overlap. Separating apps from data removes the friction from those overlappings. Personal knowledge graphs allow us to reuse our knowledge in different apps and circumstances. Let's take a look into one last example, preparing a holiday trip. Even after a trip has been booked, a lot of questions need to be answered. How do we get to the airport in time? How much luggage are we allowed to carry? Do we need a taxi to a hotel or even rent a car during our visit? What sites are we going to visit? Will the weather allow it? You already guessed it. All the information forms a knowledge graph, and we would be better off if we could make use of this graph. Sadly, the current de facto standards for knowledge exchange are still email, PDF, plain text, or even printed documents. On my last trip, I had to print out an email and bring it to my car rental. To prove my corona vaccination status, we have an app in Germany, but unfortunately, it was incompatible to the system of the destination country. So I had to export a PDF, upload it to their app, and even fill out all the data manually again. This does not quite feel like the age of digitization, does it? My vision is to have all my data available at a fingertip. No more searching around different apps, personal notes, PDF documents, or email confirmations. All the data from the car rental, the airline, the hotel, and everybody I interact with should be put directly to my pod or be interlinked with the data I have in there. I think that personal knowledge graphs using Solid could be the next stage of digitization and the basis for an interoperable digital information age. Let's take a look at one last example application. We are making a list of things we want to pack for the flight. The app can propose things to pack based on your last trips, the target destination, and the weather forecast for that location. You can also add more things to the list based on what you own. Usually there are restrictions of how much luggage you are allowed to carry. The airline could send those limits to your Solid pod along with your tickets. A Solid luggage app can show these restrictions and give an estimate if everything will fit in. But it is unrealistic to have detailed information about every piece of clothing you own, isn't it? Well, actually not. This is a screenshot from an Amazon product page of some trousers. The data is there. The problem is, they do not give it to us. And most of the time we do not care for it, because seriously, what would we do with those data? But in a digital world based on personal knowledge graphs, we actually can make use of the data. Everything I buy should be put into my Solid pod so that my apps can use the data whenever I need them to. I could put an item to my luggage list. I could put it on a list of things I lent. I could put it up for sale on eBay with only a single click. Because the data is already there, we just need to use it. This brings us back to the question, where is all the knowledge we need? We are still in the stone age of digitization. The knowledge is spread across so many different places, digital and analog. Even digital apps and services do not share the data beyond their own limited purpose. There's still so much potential to unleash. Personal knowledge graphs can connect the dots. This is what we need to do. We put everything we know and find useful into our Solid pods. We share and interlink our knowledge with others on the Solid web. Every measurement we take adds up to our knowledge graphs. We can build smart devices that add measurements to our pod and interlink it with the measured item. Classical documents can contain a digital twin of the information they represent. Imagine, for example, to scan a QR code on a printed invoice and get a digital copy to your pod. And last but not least, all the digital apps and services we are using must interlink with our personal knowledge graphs instead of isolating data. This is my vision for a digital future based on personal knowledge graphs. If you have any thoughts on it, feel free to leave a comment or contact me directly. When I first held this talk on the Solid Symposium, there was a follow-up session showing what is already possible today using Solid. There is no recording of this specific session, but I'm planning to release some videos about the practical use of Solid on this channel. Subscribe if you do not want to miss them. See you then, thanks for listening.